What is up guys, it's Zero here, and today I have for you guys a rather late, but better late than ever, deck profile for the new Link Joker with all the Chaos Breaker stuff. So this kind of took forever because I couldn't pull a single tripper for them, but that's besides the point. I basically had to spend a month crafting the two Palladiums that I was missing, because I included Salem and Flame too, but that's besides the point. We'll get the deck list and I'll explain everything as we go through it. Alright, so this is the list. I'd say this is relatively standard. Not a whole lot difference. I'll explain my card choices like usual, go through cards you can play over them, yada yada yada. Alright, so first off, the starter. My starter of choice is the White Knight Fenrir. He is the when boosting a unit with Limit Break 4, tuck him into Soul after the battle that he boosted, and then you draw a card. You don't play this because the starter is good. You play because you legit have nothing better to play. Because it nerfs Dusttail, Dusttail's like straight up garbage now. Do not play that card. That card is absolute dog shit. Do not play it. Because if you want to luck back, or you can write Nebula and do the exact same thing without going Neg 1. So yeah, that card's kind of really bad. Your other choices are kind of whatever too. You could play the Great 3 Searcher, the Goat clone, but that costs Counterblast, and if you just, since the deck has no counter chargers, if you don't flip the heal, then just a Counterblast that could have gone to something else, and not healing is definitely something that can happen. And this card is just a free way to change a card on your board into a card on your hand, and a card on your hand is potential discard fodder for Chaos Breaker, so that's why I choose to play this card. The other option is like the Selenium, the 5k, the when something is locked, bats it to hand. That's also an option. I personally think that Fenrir is better because more often than not, the card that the Fenrir will draw you it should be higher quality than the Selenium going back to your hand. The Selenium is basically just discard fodder, but it does have the cool niche of being a booster that you can bounce back every once in a while and then put it into lanes depending on when you need it. You could try that, but I personally like the Fenrir more. I think the biggest thing I don't like about the Fenrir is that it's a 4k, so when you go first and you ride Infinite Zero, because this card always goes behind the Vanguard, so it's always a Vanguard booster, because you want to tuck him in immediately on turn 3, you ride Grade 3. The problem is that since it's only 4k, Infinite Zero only scales to 18 with it, meaning you can't guarantee a second damage if you hit it defensive, so yeah. That's like my only complaint with the card, but other than that, you play because you have nothing better to play. Next up, 4 PGs, nothing. You only have one choice of PGs, so there's not even a choice here. They only have the new style of PGs. There's nothing to say. You play 4 PGs in every deck, so yeah. Next up, my other 4 of is the Lampium. And in my opinion, he is probably my favorite grade 1 in the deck, just because he does very good things known as scaling. He lets you scale your lanes. You lock one card, he becomes a 10k booster. Lock any more, he can be a solo attacker. That could be a second solo attacker. You lock one, he goes to 10, so he becomes a 10k booster. If you lock 2, he becomes 13, he can be a solo attacker. You lock 3, which is very possible if you already have him out. You can go like Break Ride lock 2, Chaos Breaker lock 1, that's 3. He becomes 16k, so if you need to, you can push him up to the front to be a 16k attacker. He's just really nice. He can be not only is he a big ass booster that scales everything, he can also just be an attacker. So yeah, I think he is very good. And I play 4 for a reason, because I super value scaling. So that is why I play 4 Lanthiums. Next, well, I should go over the Palladium first. I think I have a little more to talk about this than the Neon. So the 2 Palladiums. So what his skill is, when something is unlocked, so it's just naturally when something's unlocked, you CB1. Actually no, I'm pretty sure. I actually don't remember when it could be just when something is unlocked, or when at the end of the turn something is unlocked. But you CB1. You put him into your soul, and you relock a unit. So yeah, this is your relocker. I only play 2 because for one, I don't have any more, but I wouldn't play more than. I definitely wouldn't play 4. I'd play 2 or 3, and since I only have 2, I'm playing the 2. If you were to play more, you could cut a Lanthium, or you can cut a Neon for a 3rd. But I honestly think 2 is like workable. I do think 2 is honestly enough. I think 4 is beyond overkill, and 1 is not enough. The reason I say that is because this card is just a vanilla 7k booster early on that doesn't do anything, and that's kind of awkward sometimes, because sometimes you just need a card that can hit, and Neon can do that. He can't, because he's only 7k, unless you're running into like a Transriser or something, but that really comes up. Oh yeah, he's very good late game, and since you have Colony Maker to search it from deck, I really don't think you need that many copies of him in your deck, because this card is basically only good late game, and Neon is good early and sometimes mid to late game. So yeah, that's why I wouldn't play 4 of him, and I would play at most 2 to 3 of him. So if you want more of him, I honestly would not suggest 4. I think 3 is honestly more than enough. So yeah. And speaking of the Neon that I was talking about, this is Neon. He's the 10k attacker. You're the grade 1 10k attacker if your Vanguard's a Starvader, which is everything in the deck but the 2 Singularity Snipers. And name is important because of cards like Neon, Radon, and Chaos Breaker needing you to discard Starvader. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You don't want to play too many non-Starvader. They can come up. There were times when I had no Palladiums, and the one singular, and I played like one random filler grade 1 that wasn't Starvader name, and it did come up, and then it not being on him actually does come up. So yeah, just little things like that. Just you want to maximize as many Starvader names as you can. So yeah, that's it for the grade 1s. On to the grade 2. My favorite grade 2 of the deck, the Mobius Breath. Again, he is Starvader name. Yeah, I don't think I need to mention that anymore, but he's a Vanguard only skill on hit. He's just on hit lock. So he's early game lock. He can go when going first. He makes your opponent can't use their starter. If they aggro you for the reason, you can lock a front row. This card is just really good at punishing bad players that have to aggro you with like a grade 1 or something. But being able to stun a booster also just means they can't aggro you back unless they commit like more cards out of their hand. So this card is very nice. This card's very good. It does kind of suck that he's only a 9k vanilla on rear, but it's good enough. It's an intercept. It's an intercept of decent size. So yeah. Next off, we have a new card this time, and a card that's actually, in my opinion, probably the most important doubler in this deck, the Radon. So he is just a 12k attacker if you're Vanguard Starvader plus 3k during your turn. The reason why I think that's so important is because you need solo attackers in this deck. Because Chaos Breaker's cost has been nerfed to Ditch 2, you absolutely need to hold as many cards as you can as possible. You need to play very conservative with your resources, and having solo attackers that are 12k like Radon means you can not only swing into Vanguard solo with this card, but you can also run into basically, yeah, you can actually just run this into any rear and it'll hit by itself without needing a booster. So yeah, very important. I think he is honestly him and Mobius Breath I think are the only mandatory 4 of grade 2s in this list, in this deck. So yeah, that's why I play 4 of it. Very good card. Next, another new addition to the deck, the Colony Maker. So her skill is on play, if your opponent has a locked card, you CB1 to call any grade 1 or lower Starvader from your deck. So she calls any of the grade 1s in this list because everything in grade 1 is Starvader. She is Tar 2 is good, this card is good. Too bad that her condition is kind of really bad, but because it basically is not live early unless you ride Nebula Lord, in which case it comes to Counterblast 2 play, which is kind of expensive. So yeah, the reason I only played it at 3 is because this card is basically just a 9k vanilla until like your break ride turn. It's just being 9k Flux kind of sucks, but you kind of need to play this card. But this card can tutor out boosters and tutor out the Palladium. You play her. I only have I only have 3, but I wouldn't play 4 even if I had a 4th one. There are times where like if I could just guarantee myself the 1 copy every game, I'd only play 1 of it, but that's not how this game works. You need to play extra copies for extra consistency. So yep, that is why we play 3 of her. You could play with 4, but I think it's a little clunky. I personally would not recommend it. I think 3 is the perfect amount because with 3 you'll see her enough. At 2 you might not see her at all, and that kind of becomes a problem. So yeah, that's that. And then my last 2 slots, this is a new addition. I personally would prefer us playing the 10k vanilla because of name, but I've recently swapped to the Singularity Sniper. I think the last 2 slots are honestly preference. One if you decide to play 4 colonies instead, but I play the 4 Singularity Sniper just because this card can potentially be a free front row lock if your opponent on their break ride turn, like when they give you break ride, they don't have double intercept in the front. This can just be a straight up free lock. You can go break ride and this locks the last grade 1 or grade 3 in the front. So this card comes up and is also amazing when paired with Nebula Lord if you happen to have to ride him instead. Her skill comes up. It also punishes bad players again, so just nice to have. Only problem with her is that she's an 8k and she's not on name, but what can you do? If only she was on name, right? Or an 9k, but that'd be a little too good, wouldn't it? So yeah, only played 2 of her. Honestly speaking, if she was 9k and on name, I played 4 of her, but being 8k and being not on name kind of sucks. And since you're not playing 8k vanillas in this deck because they're not on name, you can't scale with her properly usually because 8 plus 7 is only 15. So yeah, kind of sucks, but that's what can you do. And then next off, That's it for the grade 2s. Next off for the grade 3s, we play 4 the Break Ride, the Infinite Zero Dragon. If you haven't seen this art before, now you've seen it. It's very ugly. I'm playing it as a joke, but that's besides the point. This is the ranked reward art that we just recently got. This season that just finished. I got them. I might as well play them. But art aside, the skill is Break Ride, CB1 10k, lock 1 front, lock 1 rear, lock 1 front row, lock 1 back row. And when attacking Vanguard plus 3k, so the waterfall skill. The very famous skill that I personally love a lot, lets you scale the waterfall skill. So yeah, he's when you're on him, he scales with a 7k booster, which is all of them in your deck. And then front row lock, back row lock, pretty strong, just locks the front row for very cheap cost. It was free in the TCG, but they gave us CB1 here, what can you do? Sucks to suck, I guess, but yeah. You play 4 infinite, I play 4 of these for a reason. This card is very good. Some people already say that this deck isn't too Break Ride aligned, but I personally disagree. I think this deck, like, yes, you can win without Break Riding, but I think this deck functions a lot more smoothly and just a lot better in general when you do get to Break Ride. Yeah, your opponent might just damage choke you for a bit, but they'll eventually have to give you 3 damage, right? Or 4 damage, rather. 4 damage, so yeah. Good card, very good Break Ride. Having the waterfall skill is always nice too. Next off, the card that pushed this deck up to, in my opinion, low tier 1 status last month. Maybe not this month anymore because we have unlockers now. The Chaos Breaker Dragon, everybody's favorite. Very iconic unit. But definitely nerfed in this game. Definitely a lot worse than he used to be in TCG, but that's besides the point. So his skills are Limit Break 4. You, when something at the start of your turn, when something is on, you can CB1 to retire a unit that got unlocked on the previous turn, and you draw 1. For all intents and purposes, this is the exact same as the TCG equivalent of the skill. They only worded it like this so there'd be no interactions on your opponent's turn. But for all intents and purposes, it does the same thing. You can just treat this as when something is unlocked, CB1 to draw a card. Retire it and CB1 to draw a card, and then his other skills, once per turn, Counterblast 1, discard 2 Starvaders to lock a card, any card, front row, back row, anything you want. Usually it's front row. I don't think I've ever locked a back row with that skill. So yeah, if you noticed, compared to its TCG counterpart, the retire and draw is now a counterblast instead of a soul blast, and the discard skill is now ditch 2 instead of ditch 1. So this card most definitely has been nerfed, but it's still a very, very powerful card, and this is the sole reason Link Joker is even good now. Because before, the problem with Link Joker before is that you just blew all your counterblast on one cool lock turn. You hit them, and if they had intercepts in the front, you had to deal with them on the next turn. Chaos Breaker, and since you're out of counterblast before, you have to manually run into them, and if they heal, you just can't kill them anymore. So problems like that. But with Chaos Breaker now, the retire lets you deal with the intercepts, and then you can just CB1 to lock the other card again, or use a Paladin or something to lock it again, and then get more hits into face, and it's for a cheaper cost because everything looks like CB1. So yeah, this card lets you deal. This card gives you follow-up turns, like at least 1 extra follow-up turn. So this, yeah, very, very, very good card. This card is very powerful. Do not just look at it seeing as, oh, it's nerfed, must be bad now, right? But no, this card is very amazing, and in my opinion, one of the, honestly, it is the sole reason this deck is like very good now. So yeah, 4 Chaos Breakers. Would not play less. 4 is the optimal amount. You can honestly play on heal if you want, because realistically speaking, the only grade 3 golden mulligan is Infinite Zero, but I think it comes to preference. I honestly think Chaos Breaker can't be your heal if you want. And then the card that is on heal is the Nebula Lord Dragon. So his skill is Limit Break 4. At the start of your battle phase, oh my god, I'm blanking here. At the start of your battle phase, your front row gets 3k per opponent's card that is locked. And if there's 3 or more locked, you draw 1. So if you didn't Break Ride and you CB3 to jam their entire back row, you get like 9k power and a draw. Rarely ever do you do that. Usually, if you're drawing, it's because you did Break Ride. You did Road Infinite Zero first, and you did Break Ride Nebula Lord, and you lock 1 front, 1 back, and then use him to lock the last back row. But you don't really want to be Break Riding him, given a choice. But sometimes it does come. But extra power is definitely nice. And then his last skill is Counterblast 1, lock a back row. Your choice, not Limit Break locked, as many times as you want. You play him mainly because he's Starvader name, but his power skill does come up because this deck absolutely hates. This deck cannot stand cross rides because Chaos Breaker can't hit by himself, so he needs a booster. And if you're on Infinite Zero, you probably don't have double front row locked. But like, yeah, this card does help when you're just scrambling for cards to play down and hit face with. This card does let you just push your backer up and then just lock one card and let everything hit. So yeah, very nice card. I would not play anything else as my heal. Nebula Lord does come up a lot. Although he does love showing up in my hand a lot, but that's besides the point. But yeah, that's the Nebula Lord. Good card. He's on name. He has a cool niche, and he does things that nothing else in this deck does, which is also cheap block. So yeah, very nice. And of course, synergizes very well with Singularity Sniper because you can lock one back row and then just have Singularity hit, and they have a not intercepted the front row. You can have her lock that. So yeah, very nice. And then the one of the I do not remember this card's name. It's a Starvader. That's all that matters. His skill is Vanguard only, on ride, CV2, lock anything plus 5k power. This card is basically just entropy, but a Starvader named N11k, which is just better in every way. This is just better entropy for all intents and purposes, except for the fact that he is limit break lock and entropy isn't. But for the purposes of this deck, this card is better just because it's on name. So yeah, this is the list. Tell you guys what you think about it in the comments. Like and subscribe, all the good stuffs. The only thing here, like I said before, that I would think about changing if I had everything was 3 Paladins over swap the ratios of the Paladins and Neons, but like that's like honestly very minuscule. I don't think it comes up enough for it to matter. But yeah, that's it for the deck profile. Thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys. Oh yeah, there'll be games at the end too. No promises there's audio if I'm talking in those games or not, but yeah, there'll be games at the end. Thank you for watching, everybody. Peace out.